It's a funny thing, perhaps, but there are very mixed feelings about these 8 short preludes and fugues. Some people regard them as the fake Bach pieces. How could anybody have been fooled by them? As though they are pieces that have come uninvited to a party, gate-crashed a party, and need to be ejected quietly through the back door before anybody spots that they're there. But other people, again, see them as very attractive pieces of which they've got really good memories, perhaps of learning them for the first time. And indeed, they are really pleasant pieces. And I really think that if we had always known who had written them, that they were composed, for example, by one of the Krebses, Junior or Senior, or one of the Bach sons, or by Johann Caspar Ferdinand Fischer, or whoever it may be. If we'd known that, I think we would always have said, well, aren't they lovely pieces? Wasn't X a good composer to write such attractive, varied, high-quality music? So today we're looking at the first one in the set, the C major. And this really is a set, incidentally. I'm sure that you've noticed that this is a complete set. The first one's in C, the second in D, the third one in E, the fourth one in F, fifth and sixth in G, major and minor respectively, the seventh in A minor, and the last one in B flat. So they form a neat scale. So for once, this really is a set, and they're in the right order, and they're complete. And they're all in different styles. We'll perhaps look at that in another episode. This first one is very Italianate, very rhythmic. I've always said to students that they should spend as much time away from the instrument as they spend actually at the instrument fighting with the notes. And that's a fairly obvious way of thinking, because you have to know what it is you're trying to create before you start creating it. Just imagine your sculptor, for example. He or she doesn't sit with a block of stone or a block of wood and just knock away at it at random until it happens to fall into a pleasing shape. They will look at it for a long time and try and visualize what it actually contains, what's within it, what its potential is, and then try to imagine what they're going to do with it, and then, only then, begin to actually try to put that into some kind of concrete and real shape. And it's very much the same with learning a piece of music. We can't learn the piece until we know what it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to sound like, what it's supposed to feel like, what we want it to be like. So it may be helpful with this piece to imagine a string orchestra playing it. What's it going to feel like? What's it going to sound like? What are the various rhythms going to be like? How will the articulation sound? You know, there are lots of components to this piece. There is the upbeat figuration, this one. And the throbbing figuration, this one. The chains of quavers. And the cadential figuration, amongst others. But what impression do we get of the piece as a whole? Well, there's lots of things to say about it, and we haven't got time to say them all. First of all, it's really clean and light and bright sounding. And secondly, it's rhythmic, but it's not rushed. And thirdly, it seems to work in half bars. By that, I'm talking once more about harmonic rhythm. You remember what harmonic rhythm is? It's the rate at which the harmonies change. And for most of this piece, it changes every half a bar. Just listen to these two bits here. And so that makes it all the more striking in bar 9, for example, where the harmonic rhythm suddenly changes into crotchets. And so we get a fresh emphasis on each of the 4 crotchet beats in the bar. And that will really affect our articulation of the way which we play it. So let's just move on to the fugue. We're deliberately keeping these episodes fairly short, not saying more than we need to say. So we'll probably talk at more length about fugues in another episode. But just a couple of points here. First of all, the pedals. This piece really is the perfect piece to start training alternate toes on. And you might ask how that can be so when you have this figuration, which by its very nature can't be played with alternate feet, toes only. And that's precisely why this is such a good piece to train on. The answer here, of course, is left, right, right. We actually want here to put an emphasis on the beat, so the pedals mustn't be legato into the beat. So using the same foot, in other words, simply jumping from the one pedal to the next, is precisely what we want to do. And there is evidence that composers and players of the period in which this piece was written did actually play in this way. In fact, the evidence is of one of the potential composers of the piece, Krebs, actually using this way of pedaling that kind of figuration. And secondly, we need to remember that general principle that we snatch a quick breath after a note that's been tied over from a longer note. And that's particularly relevant here, for example. We don't want the note following the tie to be slurred over into the rest. We want to just snatch a very quick breath there. Well, that's probably enough said for today. As I say, we're trying to keep these episodes very short and very straightforward. So enjoy this piece and come back for the next one.